The sounds of my horseshoes on the dusty road are not able to completely drown out the sounds of the forest all around me. I listen carefully to my surroundings, if I hear anything out of the ordinary. Then I hear the sound of people talking to each other, softly in the bushes. I know what's coming. And yes, around the upcoming corner I see a thick tree lying across the road with 2 armored bandits behind it. I squeeze my horse through a gap between the tree and the bushes next to the road and pretend to flee. But as I pass the 2 yelling bandits, I grab my bow with my left hand, knowing the bandits will probably chase me until they can't see me anymore. I let my horse gallop for another 40 meters, then turn left in the saddle while drawing my bow. The left of the 2 bandits has a steel chestplate. It will probably be the most trouble during this fight. But that chestplate will also give me a good amount of groschen and ratai, I think to myself. However, I'm not using piercing arrows because I've just been hunting deer. So, I aim at the right bandit. He is just wearing a leather vest so my arrow can pierce through his clothes and damage him significantly. I take a few seconds to aim and let the arrow go. Unfortunately, it misses and harmlessly lands in the bushes, never to be found again. I take a little longer with the second shot than I'd hoped, but it does hit the right bandit in his side. The man curses me out, slows down a bit and keeps running. The left bandit has however nearly reached me. Fuck, I won't be able to get away like I'd hoped. I'm luckily able to shake my shield from my back to my arm, dropping my bow, but I was not able to do more before the bandit slaps the flat side of his axe on the rear of my horse. The animal jumps up and throws me off. I land on my back, pushing all the air out of my lungs. I don't have time for breathing, however, and stand up as quickly as I can. The 2 men have to get around my horse, so I luckily have time to grab my axe before they get to me. We look at each other for a moment as they slowly step towards me. I know that fighting 2 men on my own is not wise, so I'll have to keep this as short as possible. I take a few steps left so they won't be able to attack me both at once, and attack the man with the least armor. I stop backing up and take 2 steps towards him. He is not expecting me to attack and not able to stop moving in time. I strike him once in his ribs, not able to hit through his armor. Then from the left, making a wound, and finally full in his face. He falls back. But I'm not able to be happy about it for long, because I'm immediately hit in the back by the other bandit. He's able to get 2 hits in that leave dents that don't feel cheap to repair. I turn around and realize the trouble I've gotten myself into. The people I heard in the bushes earlier come running towards me. Had the man I'm fighting now been alone, I would have carefully waited for him to attack, but that's not possible. I think about calling my horse and running off, but I can't pull that off without being hit. So there's only one thing I can do. I take 2 deep breaths while backing up and suddenly stop again, only to turn around and stab my axe in his direction. He was expecting that, however, and blocks my attack without difficulty. That cost a few seconds. The 2 men coming towards us are now only 10 meters away. The man in the armor keeps advancing as well. I just keep backing up and hoping that I won't walk into a tree or some bushes, because if that happens I'll lose valuable space. But standing still isn't an option. I keep blindly walking backwards, hoping for an opening. But the 2 other men have now joined their comrade on either side. If I move more left, the rightmost bandit moves faster and vice versa. The 3 form a line, steadily advancing and waiting for me to mess up. The tree I was so afraid of turns out to help a lot. It suddenly appears to the right of me. Had I been walking a meter more in that direction, I would have walked against it and I would have been dead. But that didn't happen. Instead, it disrupts the formation of the 3 mercilessly pursuing men. The rightmost man has to walk around the tree, which gives me the chance to suddenly change direction and start attacking the leftmost bandit. He's not very well armored and obviously not comfortable with the sword he's holding, so I strike him once. He blocks but loses his stance. Then again, he's hit in his side. Not fatally, but I've overpowered him. My 3rd hit sweeps down and hits him right between the eyes. His surprised expression doesn't change as he falls down. This attack happened in only a few seconds, and the armored man has taken the time to position himself to my right. I stumble after his first hit, and they keep coming, each hit damaging my armor and bruising my skin. After being hit by his ruthless axe 3 times, I'm able to clumsily block 1 hit. Warm blood flows over my chest. If I don't bandage, I'll keep losing strength until they can just grab the sword out of my hand. The strikes that I'm blocking with my shield, however, do not suggest a willingness to disarm and let me go. They're aimed at my throat, my knees, my eyes, and even my crotch. So that even if I get back to Teresa, I shake that thought out of my head. However inevitable it is starting to feel that one of these men will kill me, I have to get back to Teresa. I try to feel around for an opening, but if I attack one, the other takes the chance to easily strike me. My eyes dart between the 2 men, waiting for an opening, waiting until they attack. Then the armored man makes his axe charge for my head. I don't even think about it and step to the right. Using my shield to add to the velocity he's given himself and his axe, he almost falls over. But this is the moment to deal with his friend. Even though I feel weak, I'm able to hit once. He blocks, but poorly. Then again, he stumbles, just like his friend before him. Then, with the 3rd hit, in the blink of an eye, he is reduced to a dying man. He falls down, and my attention can be shifted to the armored man. As I turn around, I am able to block his incoming hit with my shield. This fight would now be fair if I weren't bleeding to death. I can't bring up the strength to attack strongly. Every time I try to strike, I'm easily shrugged off. I can't just wait for him to attack though, because I feel myself becoming weaker. My sight is reddening and fighting is becoming harder and harder. Both of us keep trying to attack carefully, but neither are getting any further. Both of us can cleanly block each other's attacks. I have to take him down, and quickly. So I take a few steps back and gather my strength. Luckily, he interpreted that as backing up and attacks. His axe swings down toward my face, but I change the movement with my shield and take a jab at him with my axe. He's not able to block it, so I give him another jab. This time, his shield is able to block it, but he cannot restore balance completely. So I swing my axe from the left to the right, and he blocks again. But again, his balance is not intact. Then I start moving my axe from the bottom up. But as he starts preparing to block that attack, I shift my stance and hit him with my shield in his face. To finish up, I'm just able to hit him squarely in his head with my axe. I don't pierce his helmet, but the sickening sound of metal on bone tells me he will not be able to stand. The armored man with the axe falls backwards to the ground. I've survived. For now. He is clearly not dead and stumbles around for a bit, but it's obvious he's not going to live for long. I'm not in a much better state. I ponder the crimes this man has undoubtedly committed, his current state, and decide the kindest thing to do is to put him out of his misery. It's pretty hard for me to explain why I enjoy Kingdom Come Deliverance this much. When I recommend Titanfall 2, for example, it's easy to list everything a game does and just say that it does all of those perfectly. Its gameplay is smooth as my legs when they're freshly shaved, the music is great, the missions are excellently paced, etc. Kingdom Come's combat is pretty clunky. Its entire gameplay is pretty slow now that I think about it. The music is usually great background, but nothing more. There's a plethora of bugs and many missions last too long, however fun they might be. But it's probably still my favorite game of all time, so let's talk about that. I think what makes Kingdom Come so nice to just lose yourself in is its focus. Its entire design is pretty much focused around one central pillar, immersing the player into this world. Pretty much every design decision is made with realism in mind. Making sure that the player doesn't think in the abstractions of a video game, but about reality first. Pretty quickly in Skyrim, I started seeing the technology underneath. I saw an NPC following a nav mesh and it triggered to hit me at the right time. Not a bandit. Furious because I had just killed his 2 friends coming to take revenge. Skyrim didn't completely immerse me because many things only work in the context of the game. The dungeons are satisfying to clear but make no sense, and the entirety of Skyrim is littered with moments that take you out of believing that the game is anything but a game. Immersion is in the mind. Kingdom Come takes every step it can to have the player not only think about what they know the rules of the game to be, but also what the rules of real life are. In the first part of this video, I described turning left in the saddle with my bow, because it's impossible to turn far to the right, because people just can't stretch that way. I think everyone who plays this game has had a moment in which they realized that that was the way to approach the systems available. For me, it was still in the intro, with one of the first things I did. Henry's father had asked him to get a few things for him. One of them being a beer, so the first thing I did was found that beer. I bought it and I went on with the other things I had to get for him. But by the time I got back with everything, I got scolded because the beer had gotten warm and I had to get a new one with my own money, which of course I didn't have. So I had to come up with a solution to that. That moment made me think completely differently about the world I was now inhabiting. Not everything would be explained to me, but I could prepare for that by just assuming what I knew from real life. From there, I became Henry. Clueless, but so eager to explore this intriguing world. This focus and commitment to reality is not a coincidence. Daniel Vavra, the lead designer and writer, said in an interview, "My philosophy is that gameplay should be natural, believable and complex, but not complicated. I believe that this is the most important part of the design of Kingdom Come Deliverance, that the world behaves naturally." This dedication can even be seen in the engine choice. Kingdom Come Deliverance runs on the Crytek engine, an engine originally developed for linear first-person shooters in modern time with vehicles and stuff. They decided to make a medieval RPG in an engine that was completely not up to the task yet. But the nature looked nice, so they just casually made that engine capable of open-world RPGs, just so the grass would look nice. When the engine was done, the first priority was to make an interesting world that would function without the player. The NPCs would go about their days. They would eat, sleep, hang out at the inns and work. The player could interact with them and freely wander about and be a part of its systems. And when they had made that natural open world and started adding quests, there were plenty of emergent opportunities for players to do new and exciting things. Not because they set them up like this, but because the sandbox just allowed the player to approach problems from a different angle. The way the game perfectly made me become Henry was something I haven't experienced before or since. Another game you could describe as one of the best RPGs is Fallout New Vegas. New Vegas gives the player a world and a situation which they can throw a character of their own choice into and play out a story of their own choosing. Your character can be a cold-blooded cowboy, a sexual diva, and so much more. KCD, on the other hand, has you embodying Henry, a young, rash, slightly arrogant, wide-eyed man with a quite distinct voice actor and a cinematically told story. What Kingdom Come might do best is that it makes you feel like Spider-Man. Sorry, couldn't resist. What Kingdom Come might do best is that it makes you be Henry. Henry is so weak at the beginning of the game in both cutscenes and gameplay, and him getting more capable in the terrifying world and you figuring out how you're supposed to play the game line up so perfectly that you and Henry become one. You start off being confused about how to use a sword and being happy that you are able to hit someone just once. But this ineptitude is completely reflected in the fact that Henry can't even cut his stick in half in the cutscenes. In The Witcher 3 I was confused by the fact that I was Geralt, the legendary white wolf, but fighting a few wolves was pretty hard. And this ever-present dissonance in The Witcher is completely lacking from KCD. Every skill you learn is something you've never done before in any game. There's a multitude of examples, but the most jarring is reading. If Henry hasn't learned to read, opening a book will be confusing as hell, because the words don't make sense. When Henry is learning to read, the words are slightly scrambled, leading you to take longer reading every word and making it feel like you're actually learning to read again. A few years ago, YouTuber Racevic uploaded a video where he talked about immersion. making the argument that immersion wasn't in realistic worlds or elaborate backstories, but in a game that keeps you on the edge of your seat, where you'd stop thinking about the rest of the world because the game requires every part of your mind. While he makes this argument marvelously, what he was talking about is known in the games industry as flow. Flow is intensely important, and 3 of my 4 favorite games are incredible in motivating that feeling, and that is the biggest reason I like them so much. But don't write off immersion just yet. Immersion is believing that everything you interact with in a digital world will respond the way things do in real life. When Bob Ross makes a painting, it's incredible to watch how he just makes things appear out of thin air. You see the paint added to the canvas, but for some reason you don't see the paint on a canvas. You see a tree, or a mountain, or a riverside. Kingdom Come kind of feels the same to me. It doesn't feel like a bunch of models and textures and code, but like a real world, a world that you could explore, with people in it that can get mad at you and that can die. Immersion is believing that the consequences of your actions are real, even though they might not be. And that is a powerful thing. That was really fun to make. I'm kinda surprised that I actually finished it. Wow. It's the first time I did anything like this, and I think I'm really looking forward to making more of it. I have more games I want to talk about. See you another time, and have a good day.